welcome to Teachable Tuesday, where we are presenting information on Tuesdays on different topics that are requested by doers. So thank you so much for being here. I do want to, before we get into the presentation, it should be about 60 minutes long, where at the end of the presentation, if you could save your questions for the Q&A. I also want to make sure everyone knows that you are looking at the events because there's some awesome things coming up for DMV does. So thank you for your engagement and your participation. I'm going to turn it over to Brian, but before I do that, Brian is actually the attorney for DMV does. He's working on our LLC right now. And I met him through another social group, and he's come to a couple of events that we've had. So I'm honored that he chose to do this presentation with us tonight. And I'll just let Brian take it over from here.
All right. Hello, everyone. I'm Brian Pendergraft, and I'm an attorney that is licensed to practice law in both Maryland and the District of Columbia. Unfortunately, I'm not licensed to practice law in Virginia yet, mostly because I'm lazy. I halfway completed the application and didn't finish it yet, but soon I'll be licensed in Virginia once I finally get around to getting that application done. All right, let's see. Now let's see if I can get these slides rolling. All right, so let's see if I can tab with right, left. Oh, there we go. Perfect. Right, left. All right, Ariel's entering. All right, there you go, Ariel. I'm just let you in. All right, so let's see if I can. All right, this is not tabbing the way that I would like for it to. Okay, I have to click on the slide whenever I need it to go. All right, so disclaimer, this is a legal information. This is not legal advice. So for legal advice, you can contact an attorney that is licensed to practice law in your jurisdiction, such as myself, or maybe even another DMV does attorney. We have quite a few in the DMV does group. So it's not just about me. It's about everyone. So I'll tell you guys a bit about me, or at least a little bit about me. So I started practicing law at age 24. So I started very young, actually. I finished college and law school, both early. In retrospect, I probably shouldn't have taken life so seriously so soon. Let's see, I weightlift 7 times a week. I'm an expert at Mario Kart. I would much rather stay home than go to court. And I am, by now, at least a 5 times Pokemon champion. So played a lot of Pokemon games growing up. Alrighty, so the concept of this presentation is actually pretty simple. I put it together with the help of you guys, quite literally. So I took your, so usually when I do presentations, I generally, prepare them myself and what I think is helpful. But for this presentation, particularly for DMV does, I decided to literally just let you guys essentially scope the presentation for me. So I just took your questions and I answered them. So this presentation is great is because you guys ask great questions. If it's bad and if it sucks, then that's on you guys too, because you guys ask bad questions. So this is all on you. Unless of course it goes well, then I'm taking the credit. All right. So Microsoft iPhones, we're letting you guys in. So as you can see, the first question I had to, I had to answer Jennifer's question first because she is the host and, she started the group and everything. So I put her question first. So Jennifer Lay asks, what is the benefit of starting an LLC? So here are, in my opinion, the major benefits of an LLC over sole proprietorships and why I should think about starting one. So the first benefit is the ability to change the tax status or how it is taxed. So if you are if you have a sole proprietorship, your taxes goes on your personal tax return, essentially. So that is how a sole proprietorship is taxed. And LLCs, or at least by default, are taxed very similarly to that. But with sole proprietorships, that is your only option. But with LLCs, you can change the tax status later. So you can change to being taxed like an S Corp, or you can change to being taxed maybe even like a C corporation. Generally, what people do is they will change to being taxed to an S Corp, so they can save money that way. That's generally what people do. That said, another major benefit of LLCs over sole proprietorships is that they are advantageous for partnerships. So you're personally protected from your partners or your investors' actions. So I like to think of an LLC as like it's kind of crude, but I kind of think of it as like wearing protection in a way, right? You don't want to, so if your partners mess up, you don't want to, get whatever they get, right? So that is why you use protection and have an LLC when you have partners and investors. So if they do anything messed up, you are shielded from that. Now, if you do not have a, LLC or any form of like, perhaps an LLC or perhaps some form of partnership agreement. If you don't have that, then everyone can get sued for one person's mishap. So it's another reason why. So you have business partners, definitely consider an LLC. Another reason is for a liability protection. So that's great for both operational businesses and for rental properties. And for the last reason is that they are good for a business credit. So when you form a business entity, you get a tax ID number, which is essential for building credit. And then you can borrow money solely in the name of your company and not in your personal name. All right. So Cedric Bridgewater asks, do I need an LLC to lease land lot to someone? The answer to that is no. LLCs are not required to do business, so they're pretty much never required to do business. You can do as much business as you want without LLCs. That said, LLCs are very commonly used to rent real estate property for personal asset protection. So you want to keep your as a general rule, you want to keep your landlord business separate from your personal dealings. Because if you're renting a rental property, someone could slip and fall on the premises. Next thing you know, they're trying to sue you for everything that you own. So you definitely want to have a limited liability company, kind of distance yourself from that happening. So Brent Hughes asks, what are the benefits of different entity types? So for LLCs, I have just a liability protection. That's great. For S corporations, liability protection plus potential tax savings on self-employment taxes. So once you make enough money, essentially, it may be better to switch how you are taxed to how an S corp is taxed. Essentially, I'll explain a little bit more about that in detail later. And C corporations, they primarily exist to serve large companies that are selling stock to thousands of shareholders. So they're generally formed to raise capital and to abide by securities laws. So basically, if you're watching this presentation, then a C corporation is probably overkill. Then Brent asked more questions about forming an LLC in Delaware and Nevada, or parent-child entities, and I actually answer that later in this presentation. So I'm not skipping that. We're getting to that. So Tim Stevens asked, how much revenue is needed to justify creating the LLC structure? And why create an LLC instead of just a DBA? And instead of just doing business as a sole proprietorship? What paperwork and record keeping is required for an LLC versus running a business without the expense and extra paperwork and tax filings of an LLC? So essentially, I think what he's asking is what are the costs of an LLC? So here are the LLC costs to consider if you are considering forming one. So filing fees and setup costs can be anywhere from $0 to maybe $1,000, maybe even greater, actually. So I have 0 to 1,000 there, but I think it can be greater depending on how many members are in the LLC or how complicated it is. I don't expect you guys to be spending over 1,000, but I mean, if you have like 5 people in the LLC, it can get pretty complicated. That may cost a lot. So there are annual maintenance fees. So just for doing business, you're going to be required to do, annual filing. So Maryland has a annual business property tax return that costs $300 to file. And I think you're supposed to be taxed on your businesses, like your business property, essentially. It costs, and I always say that my business owns no property, but nevertheless, I still have to pay that $300 and file it. And DC has a biennial return that costs so biennial means every 2 years, essentially. So that one costs $200 to file. And Virginia's is $50. So that is just a fee that you just have to incur every year just because you do business and your state wants to take money from you. Now, other costs you have to consider are tax return preparations and bookkeeping, but I don't necessarily consider that an LLC expense. That's just more like just a general business expense, really, because even if you don't have an LLC, you should probably still good bookkeeping and tax return services. That's just good for business in general. But nevertheless, I personally pay a CPA. I'm going to say $750 in order to file annually, and my bookkeeping that I pay for is about $1,600 annually for bookkeeping. So that's a cost for you guys to keep in mind. Also, registered agent service, which I would recommend, by the way, may cost about $99 per year or maybe even less. And you may also need a virtual address if you don't want to use your personal if you don't have a business location. And that may cost maybe around $99 per year or more. Other than that, I don't think that there's too much extra paperwork there as far as record keeping goes. There's really not much to an LLC. But alrighty, moving on. So, Eccentric Jai asks, once you have an LLC, what the hell is next? So, what the hell is next? You have to act like you have an LLC once you have an LLC. What does that mean? You open a business account. You accept payments in the business name. You make payments from the business name. You link your what I did was I linked a bookkeeping app to my business account in order to track my business's activity. You want to consult with a solid bookkeeper or a CPA in order to just to keep everything in line, keep everything in order. Then you want to get licenses that your businesses may require. You want to get insurance appropriate for your business. In my case, that's legal malpractice insurance. Not sure what yours is, but let's see. And then start doing business. That's what the hell is next. You start doing business. You start making money. Alrighty. Next question. Oh, you know what? I forgot to tell you guys. You guys can access this presentation actually. So you guys can visit. If you go to www.tpf.legal/does, you can pull up this presentation and follow along. I don't know why I didn't say that at the beginning of this presentation, but I'm saying it now. So that is so you're watching this from a computer, go to www.tpf.legal/does, and it'll bring up this presentation. So yeah, I want you guys to be able to follow along. So Star says, thank you for doing this. I've been hesitant for a while now. Is it as simple as going onto the site, getting an EIN and paying the fees, and then boom, LLC? And Joshua Johnson essentially asked the same thing. He asked, how do I start? And I promised Star that I would give her the Simplified Llc Setup. So here it is. Here is the do-it-yourself Simplified Llc Setup. So you would have to, documents required would be, so one, you'd have to draft an operating agreement. What is an operating agreement? That is like the rules for your business. Two, you would have the file the articles of organization with SDAT in the case of Maryland, State Department of Assessments and Taxation, State Department of Assessments and Taxation. That's with Maryland. Or you would have to file that same articles with or if you formed a business in DC, you would file the articles in DC. As far as Virginia, I don't know. I don't have formed a business in Virginia yet, but presumably wherever it is in Virginia. Anyway, so after you file the articles basically tells the state that you have a business. So that's why it's needed. And step 3, you get the EIN with the IRS. And then from there, you can open a bank account. That is step 4. So that is the do-it-yourself simplified route. Now, the another way to get it done would be to use LegalZoom or a similar filing service. So there's services like LegalZoom. I guess they provide legal services, but they aren't attorneys. That's another route you can go. Typically less expensive than hiring attorneys, especially expensive ones such as myself. And then the last option is to hire an attorney, which I would definitely recommend for a multi-member LLCs and who knows, some attorneys lots of tips and tricks, which I'm kind of giving away for free today, but that's what I do for the DMV doers, I guess. Let's see. So Bryson Daniel asks, after filing your LLC, how do you get an EIN number? And what bank offers free business accounts? So you can apply for your EIN online with the irs.gov website. So that is where you go in order to get your EIN. So as far as what bank offers free business accounts, I have no idea. So most banks with a physical presence seem to require a minimum account balance or monthly transaction amount to avoid fees for business accounts. I think I tried Bank of America. They told me that I needed to have a certain amount of what's the word I'm looking for? Transactions. I think it was like maybe $30 per month. Anyways, I don't know. All right. So moving on to the next question.
Thanks.
All right. Welcome. Let's see. So Kimberly, fellow attorney, Very good attorney, by the way. So, I mean, she might form more business than I have, probably. So you guys can definitely, talk to her about your legal needs as well. Remember, this presentation is about me. It's about the DMV does. So she asks, and of course, she knows the questions to ask. So she asks, what's the purpose of a resident agent? So a resident agent is an individual or entity that is designated to receive legal documents or legal process on behalf of an LLC. So it's an LLC or just a business entity requirement in general. So in order to sue someone, you personally must serve that person with legal papers. So if you want to sue me, Brian, you would have to have someone come serve Brian. But unlike Brian, LLCs they don't exist. They are legal fictions. They don't actually exist in the material world. So you can't serve McDonald's. Like, how would you do that? So that is why we have a registered agent. So we appoint some person or maybe even another business that can accept service on behalf of McDonald's in their stead, essentially. So that is how a registered agent works. And you are going to need one for an LLC. You can be your own registered agent, which I don't recommend, but that's something you can, I'll talk about that in another question. Alrighty, moving on. So Jasmine asks, is it okay to have a few transactions before getting the LLC? I'm about to launch my second business and I want the transactions to pay for the cost of the filing. LOL. And I say, yes, I see a lot of people get excited about forming businesses after watching exciting, amazing, great, glorious presentations just like this one. And then they form a business and then they never do any business. So I think it's actually a good idea to use the money that you make from your business activity to pay for your LLC formation and maintenance costs. Michael Petaway asks, how to create multiple LLCs under one name? Yeah, and the answer is you can't, at least not in the same state. So the reason why you can't is because they want states, they want you guys to have unique names. So, alrighty. So AJ Word, she asked, what's currently holding back is needing a lawyer, needing to have a business address, and what address to use. A business coach said not to use the PO box and sets his company and pays his company a monthly fee to use their office space and address. I don't need an office per se. I want to see clients virtually. So to sum it up, she needs a virtual. Essentially she needs a fake real business address. That is the solution to her problem. So she needs a real business address service, and they can cost as low as maybe $100 to $200 per year. So the way that works is that these companies, they will hook you up with a real business address that is good enough for a business registration. So, I've gotten away with using these real business addresses. So that's something that can be done. And again, you know what I mean? There can be maybe lost $100 per year. Now, another option would be to just use your home address, but I don't necessarily recommend that because we don't want people showing up at we don't want people showing up at your house. So I would much rather pay $100 a year and get one of those fake real business addresses. Alrighty. So Kimberly again, of course, asking the right questions. Great lawyer. She asked, what are the limits to liability protection an LLC provides? And what are factors considered when determining if the corporate veil has been pierced? So, limited liability does not apply if a member injures someone, a member personally guarantees a loan, if you fail to pay payroll taxes, or if you fail to keep personal affairs separate from LLC LLC operations. In other words, don't that's coming. I'm supposed to say commingle. Don't commingle LLC and business funds. And limited liability. And lastly, it does not apply if a member does something fraudulent. So yes, don't do that stuff, even if you have an LLC. Robert Monroe asks, how soon should I hire an attorney as part of my business strategy? Which is a difficult question to answer, but please, without me, seeming bias, but you need to consider hiring this is actually one of my business pitches that I used before. I used this whole A, B, C, D, E, F thing, which is kind of easy to remember. So A is, arbitration, mediation, litigation. B is business formation. C is contract review and drafting. D is demand letters. E is evictions, foreclosures. So, in other words, when do you need to hire an attorney? Let me think more about this. When you have a legal issue, you know what I mean? If you need a contract review, contact contact an attorney. You need to send a demand letter, contact an attorney. I think it helped the DMV does guy purchase they needed help purchasing a hotel, actually. I think they're purchasing a hotel. And this guy right in the DMV does group hit me up, man. He was like, hey, man, I'm purchasing a hotel. I'm just like, that's a great time to hire an attorney as part of your business strategy, right? We need contract review for a hotel, actually, no, it was an apartment building, for an apartment building purchase, right? So that is a good time to contact an attorney. So if you need help with maybe consulting agreements, employee agreements, commercial lease reviews, any sort of legal issue, and that's probably a good time to contact an attorney. So Keisha asks, registering in another state, why and why not? What's the best states for out-of-state registration? So, as a general rule, not or don't register in another state. So, your home jurisdiction will most likely require you to foreign file your LLC if you're doing business in your home jurisdiction. So, what that means essentially is that you will end up having to pay maintenance fees in both your home jurisdiction and in the other jurisdiction that I guess you formed the business in. Once you foreign file in your state, essentially, you're going to have to maintain that foreign filing, which it'll cost the same as maintaining an LLC in your state. In addition to that, you're going to be paying the fees for, I guess, Nevada or Delaware or whatever cool place that you decide to form your business in. So if you are so generally, the best place, there are some amazing states to register business in, but if you're, let's say, operating in Maryland, such as myself, Maryland attorney, you should probably form in Maryland. That's kind of how my thoughts there. All right. So Jamie, Christina asks, why not compare and contrast as to why you would choose an LLC versus a C Corp? All right. So, so I kind of, let's see. All right, man, this is long. But nevertheless, all right, so let's get through it quickly. So there's ownership differences between LLCs versus corporations. So LLC owners are members, corporation owners are shareholders, and corporations are great for issuing shares to investors and raising capital. So they are preferred by venture capitalists and investors. So C corporations are generally good or great for large companies that are selling stock to let's say lots of people. Also, there is all right, so tax differences between an LLC versus a C Corp. So C corporations are taxed on corporate income and shareholder dividends, so they are taxed twice. LLCs by default have pass-through taxation, meaning profits and losses are passed through to the personal tax return, and there is not a tax at the corporate level, or they're not taxed on, I guess, corporate income, essentially. So S corporation doesn't pay. S corporations, on the other hand, don't pay tax on income, and company revenue is reported as personal income. So, in short, LLCs are generally cheaper for businesses just starting, and once you make enough money, LLCs generally like to convert the S corp to save on self-employment taxes. So you want to consult with CPA about that. Again, C corporations, on the other hand, are good for public companies that are selling shares to thousands of people, and they comply with securities laws. That's why you'll see Apple or Facebook and things of that nature. They tend to be C corporations. So, what's a great thing about LLCs is also they can elect to be, they can change their tax status. So they can elect to be taxed as, let's say, C Corp or an S Corp. You may be able to save money that way eventually. Of course, not just starting out as a new business. You probably don't want to do that. Let's see. And there are maintenance differences in a LLC versus a C Corp as well. As versus a C corporation, versus corporations as well. So corporations are required to adapt bylaws, issue stock, and hold annual director meetings. These formalities really aren't I don't think they're a bad thing, because a lot of LLCs are run very poorly with no meetings, business records. And I think LLCs should kind of be run properly, like how corporations are really. So, I said a lot there, but really a lot of it comes down to taxes. Alrighty, so HB Blacklit. All right, we are back on corporations versus LLCs. So he asked, corporation versus LLC, if you're a solopreneur, which is more beneficial in terms of tax savings, but will also provide best protection of you and your business assets and personal property if you ever wind up in court. So for new solopreneurs, I think LLCs are generally the way to go. Again, they're typically more tax efficient than C corporations, at least while you're not making too much money. Let's see. But I feel like I just said all of this. It was just not. And let's get down here. And we're going to skip down here and the rest of the other part of his question is he asked about which one is better for essentially asset protection. So he's asking LLCs or the corporation. Neither really. They're both kind of the same there already. So I feel like I went through that kind of fast, but I feel like I just kind of already answered that question with Jamie's. So, but yeah. So again, if you're new, just consider, I think LLCs are probably the way to go for a lot of liability protection. They're really, I don't really see one is better than the other. So Roston File asks, is it complicated to move an LLC? Say it's established a current residence, but one forecast moving within the next few years. How can one legally use an LLC to limit personal taxable income? What is the most tax-friendly state in the area? And is it worth it in LLC if you're residing in a non-friendly state? So moving in LLC. So there are generally 3 options when it comes to moving an LLC. Number 1, you can dissolve the LLC in the state that you formed it in, and then you can form a new one in the new state. Option number 2, you can maintain your LLC in the other state, and then you can foreign file in the state that you moved to. Option number 3, you can merge your old LLC into the new one. So those are the 3 options as to how you can go about, I guess, moving your LLC. I really don't think any of the options are too complicated, because he asked, is it complicated? But I really don't think any of them are. But now, how do I limit taxable income? You hire a good CPA or tax attorney. That's how you limit taxable income. Let's see. Where's registered to limit personal taxable income? It's a good question. I think that there's too many factors to consider as far as whereas MD or DC is better for or maybe Virginia is better, to register to limit your personal income. That said, I still think you should register where you are primarily doing business for the same reason that I said earlier in this presentation, the whole foreign file thing, you know what I mean? Where your home state is going to require you to foreign file where you're doing business anyway. And if you don't do that, they will find the hell out of you. So, already, Remy Franklin asks, taxes. Tanya Woolfolk asks, general tax reporting questions. Answer to that, I have no idea. I am not a tax expert. I'm just a legal guy. But we do have some great tax experts on the in DMV does. I can think of a Sakina Tillman off the top of my head. She's a great attorney and tax attorney. So you know what I mean? I'll give you guys their info. Alrighty, so Jamise and Jada, she asks, do you suggest having a registered agent outside of yourself? Why is or isn't it a good idea? I think it's a great idea. Unless you're okay with people trying to pop up on you and trying to track you down in order to serve you. And also, the service is relatively inexpensive. I think you can get a registered agent service for $99 a year or less if you purchase multiple years, which is what I tend to do, or recommend that my clients do. So, you may get 3 years of registered agent service for $240, right? So that's a good idea. They're also generally better at accepting service than what you are, and you really don't want to miss out on any sort of legal process or legal papers, essentially. So I would definitely recommend having a registered agent. All right, Gregory Avant asks, can LLCs cross state lines? In this case, multiple house rental properties currently spanning in 2 states, but plan to be in 4 to 5 states. What are deep critical points and thin ice hazards of such? So you may need to register as a foreign entity if you are doing business in the other jurisdiction. And renting in a particular state is generally considered doing business in that state if you are renting in that state. But that said, he definitely, just using my real estate specific knowledge here, I think as a general rule, you know what I mean? If you have, let's say you have rental properties, let's say in Virginia, you probably want to have an LLC in Virginia that holds that rental property. You probably don't want the Maryland LLC, I guess, holding that property. Who knows? Maybe you could form a holding company that holds, or in the state where you're located, that holds the LLCs formed in the other state that hold that real estate there. I feel like I'm on something right now. Anyways, but my point is that, I'll hit you up, Gregory, and I'll have to give you you're going to need to consult on this one. But as a general rule, you want to have rental properties where you want to have LLCs where the rental properties are located as a general rule. So I don't really like the idea of a Florida property Florida property being held by a Maryland LLC, because I don't think that they will your limited liability protection will probably fail in that case if, someone wants to sue you in the state of Florida, and if you haven't foreign filed in Florida. So, alrighty. Michael Petaway asks, doing business internationally with an LLC. I think that's too complicated for LLC 101, unfortunately. So we're going to skip that one. But we'll come back to that for LLC 102. There's a lot, but the reason why there's a lot of implications when it comes to international business law, such as the laws and rules of the other jurisdictions or the other countries we'll be doing business in. So it's a little complicated for LLC 101, but we'll get back to that. So Adonica Rose, she asked quite a bit of questions, but so she asked about let's see, taxation, LLCs, S Corps, benefit corps, waste turnover in estate plan. What that means is essentially waste turnover in estate plan. So she's essentially, I think what she's indicating there is succession planning. So I talked a lot about LLCs and S Corps. I'm going to talk about succession plannings later on. So I kind of keyed in, at least for her question, I kind of keyed in on the benefit corporations because no one asked about that. So she's the only person that brought it up. So I thought, hey, I should at least talk about that one. Thanks for giving me the opportunity, Adonica. So what is a benefit corporation or a B corporation? So essentially, a B corporation it's a for-profit. But in addition to for-profit, they're also supposed to have a positive impact on society, workers, communities, and the environment, essentially. So think of it as like a C corporation, but nicer. It's not just for-profit. We're also supposed to, positively impact the community. So, it's not quite a nonprofit, but not quite a C corporation as well either. So, Della Little asks, should I incorporate all three of my homes into one LLC, or do they need individual LLCs? So she has 2 rentals and 1 primary residence. So it's a good question. So your LLC is like a bucket. And if one of your tenants gets injured, hold on. Is my mic not working?
I can hear you.
Oh, okay. Got it. Okay. You guys can hear me. Okay, cool. It would have sucked if I was talking for like the last, 30 minutes or however long I've been going for. And 35 minutes. All right, cool. So to incorporate, so Della Little asks, should I incorporate all 3 of my homes into one LLC, or do they need individual LLCs? You got 2 rentals and 1 primary residence. So an LLC is like a bucket. So if one of your tenants gets injured on the property, they can go after all of the assets that are inside of that same bucket. On the other hand, maintaining multiple buckets costs more money. So now I have to pay to upkeep all of these LLCs. So I think a good way to go about doing this would be to divvy up your assets between different buckets in the way that you feel the most comfortable. So would you feel most comfortable putting everything into one basket, or would you feel most comfortable putting it all in 3, or maybe even 2, splitting the baby, having it somewhere in the middle? I mean, I'll probably be most comfortable with something in the middle, but everyone has a different risk tolerance, right? So it would be up to you to decide that, really. But that said, putting everything into one is probably not the wisest idea. All right, so Wayne Caesar asks, when starting an LLC in Maryland for an online e-commerce store, do I also need a business license? So a license is not required for e-commerce business. If you actually, I got a story about this one, because I didn't know the answer to this question. So I didn't know the answer to this question, but I got the answer. I just asked the I think I asked the clerk of the court or whatever. I just shot them an email, and then they gave me the answer. So I just copy and pasted their answer and use it as my answer. So I'm reading an answer that I did not come up with. But, that's what good attorneys do, man. We're resourceful. We don't know the answer. We find the answer. In fact, that's probably describes how being an attorney actually is. You know what I mean? I don't actually know the law. I just look it up when I need it. That's a good attorney for you right there. Anyway, so a license is not required for e-commerce businesses if you are strictly selling homemade goods. So if you are selling homemade goods, you do not need a license. But should you start the whole additional inventory to sell retail, then a trader's license will be required. So again, homemade goods, no license. Not homemade goods, license. Trader's license, specifically the trader's license. That is what is going to be required. Alrighty, so Will Bow asks, picking a location to register an LLC. Yeah, kind of described that already. Generally, the best place to register an LLC is your home state. Running an LLC in the U.S. while living abroad. Let's see. Did I answer that question here? Let's see. So running an LLC in the U.S. while living abroad. And the next question is general tax advice for an LLC. And again, I think I already explained for tax advice. We have a Sakina for that. So I'll give you guys her information so you guys can get in touch with her. Let's see. So picking a location to register an LLC, generally the best place is your home state. And if you file outside of your home state, you'll most likely be required to form file in your home state. Look, I explained that like a few slides over. Then you have to pay the cost to maintain both filings. And as far as running an LLC abroad, so while living abroad, just run it like you're living here. You know, that's what you do. Alrighty. Takesha Hodge, she asks, bookkeeping do's and don'ts, as well as insurance for your LLC. So outsource bookkeeping, that's probably I'm not sure if that's a good answer, but that's my best answer. Outsource bookkeeping. So I use a cheap online, I guess, virtual assistant service. And that's kind of connect to their system, and they just do it for me. I pay them every month, and they do it. I think in my slide earlier, I think I said I maybe spent about $1,600 a year on bookkeeping services. Very well worth it, by the way, because I can make a lot more lawyering than I can bookkeeping. So I just pay someone else to bookkeep. And then she asked insurance for your LLC. So essentially, you're going to have to buy the proper insurance for, I guess, whatever services that you are providing. So again, it's going to be different based on what you're providing. So me as a lawyer, all right, letting Rochelle in. So me as a lawyer, I purchase legal malpractice insurance. That's what I use. So all right, I need to pick up the pace. So Meme Charles asks, I have an LLC already, but I want to be able to create an LLC as an IT professional contractor. Not sure if I'm explaining what I'm aiming to do correctly. So assuming you can maintain the cost of multiple LLCs, the best practice is probably to have different LLCs for unrelated businesses. That said, you can save money and operate under the same business entity. You know what I mean? So I could use the Pendergraft firm for, legal, to be, I guess, lawyer services and as a hold rental properties. It's just probably not the best idea. I probably want to keep those things separate because I don't want my legal work to, I guess, impact maybe if someone wants to sue me for malpractice and then go after my rental properties that are held in the Pendergraft firm LLC. Bad idea. You know what I mean? So I want to keep everything separate. But something to consider. But you can keep everything under one umbrella if you are a cheap. This might be a good idea just starting out. You know what I mean? I was very cheap when I first started. Sorry. So Leo Maurice Nazario asks LLCs for real estate investments, which isn't really a question, but good thing for him is that I'm a real estate attorney. So I've already done a presentation on LLCs for real estate investments. So, so Leo, if you just Google, real estate investors, LLCs for real estate investors, TPF legal, you will find that presentation. I have another presentation for should I form an LLC for my real estate business? So if you Google, should I form an LLC for my real estate business, TPF legal, that presentation will pop up. So other presentations that are just as good as this one. All right. So Leo asked again. All right. So we got 2 in a row from Leo. So he asked if resident LLC from another state or U.S. territory to the DMV. Let's see. There's an LLC, which I think I'm going to, I think I answered that question better elsewhere. So I'm going to skip that one right now. The next question, does an LLC work for all types of businesses? And yes, it does. It may not necessarily be the best depending on what you're trying to do. Again, if you're trying to sell shares to, let's say, thousands of people and want to comply with securities laws, as I explained earlier, a C corporation may be better for doing that. Or if you want to, do a nonprofit, then a nonprofit may be the best for that. Anyways, and then he asked for book recommendations to start or manage an LLC, including tax exemption and benefits of an LLC. I like the book recommendation that I like is the Tax and Legal Playbook. I think that's a pretty good place to start. Let's see. So Jasmine asks, does my LLC have to be in a state that I live in? This is super important because we are in the DMV and may do business in other areas. And Remy says, I have the same question. So does your LLC have to be in a state that you live in? No, it's not no, but it is, again, not a bad idea. I explained the whole foreign filing concepts. I don't want to, say that, over and over again. Let's see. Alrighty, moving on. I think I answered the question. I have extra additional notes here that I don't think it have anything to do with the question. All right, so moving on. So Scuba Spars asks, when creating an LLC in the DMV, do you need to register in all three? What do you need to do in order to operate or serve in all three? So I would register in my home jurisdiction where I probably do business the most. So for me, it's Maryland, right? I tend to do most of my legal practice in Maryland. So I think that's the one that you register in. That's the one that you definitely want to, I guess, set up as the home base. Now, you may need, so most jurisdictions actually require you to foreign file if you are doing business there. So let's say if I started taking, let's say, a lot more cases in DC than what I do now, then at that point, I should probably foreign file in DC. But because I'm rarely there and the work that I do tends to be a bit more isolated, I've not foreign filed in DC. Hopefully they don't decide to come after me one day and find me. But that is the risk you take when you are doing business in other jurisdictions, even the DMV area when you're registered in Maryland. That said, I'm not doing a lot of business in DC. So yeah, that's something to consider. If you are doing a crazy amount of business in DC, Maryland, and Virginia, then you may need to register in, I guess, whichever one you're based in, and then foreign file in the others. Let's see. All right, moving on to the next one question. Anne asks, does LLC in Maryland require that you have a board of directors? No. You can choose your form of management. LLCs are extremely flexible, so you can but no, you can just be, it can just be you. You know what I mean? You as the member calling all the shots. Let's see, or maybe your partner is, your partner calling all the shots. All right. So Kimberly asks, why do some folks incorporate in Delaware? And again, my point is, U.S. residents typically generate income in their home state where they generally incorporate, in their home state where they primarily do business. But people like Delaware because it's very business friendly. They have like an 8.7% corporate tax income rate. They have a 0% sales tax. Privacy, they don't require officers or directors to be listed on information documents. They generally have cheaper filing fees. I think in Maryland, I got my $300 fees. I got to pay them every year or whatever. It's a lot cheaper over in Delaware and other places. I think investors love it as well. There's no income tax over there in Delaware. So Delaware is great. You know what I mean? Too bad I don't live there. Alrighty. So Toya McCoy asks, my question about LLCs and assets in the LLC's name, mainly bank accounts. If a member is subject to levy for personal legal judgments or taxes or tax liabilities, can the LLC assets be impounded? So, all right, letting Tamara in. So, if you are a single member LLC, they can attempt to foreclose on your LLC interest if they get a judgment against you personally. And then they can attempt to go after the LLC's assets, essentially. So, but if you are a multi-member LLC, on the other hand, what they can do is they can get a charging order against you, or that is the judgment enforcement mechanism they can get. It's called a charging order. So they're typically used to get distributions that from the business that are due to you, to have them sent to the creditors instead. That is called a charging order. So yeah, you know what I mean? They might very well go after those. Go after what you want to get a judgment against you personally. So Jasmine K. Peters asked, but that's, it's probably a good reason why to what's it called? I'll skip that point. Let's see. So Jasmine asks, do I need a separate bank account for my LLC business? Need a discussion on commingling funds? You absolutely do. You are a business now, so you have to separate your business activity and your personal activity. Well, that is if you want your LLC to be effective. Jasmine also asked, what tax docs do I need during the year? Never know what's expected of me until tax time. My answer to that is I have no idea. We're going to get our tax attorney friend to do a presentation. Jalea Tillman asks, teach me ways to stay financially organized and how to buy a company car for my LLC, like some pros, tips, do's, and don'ts. So here's how to buy not just your car, but anything with your LLC. So you can, like I bought this, like how I bought this microphone. All right, how did I do it? All right, so you pay using your LLC business card or a check. And so you're going to need a business bank account in order to do this. And you just pay with the card. And that's simple, or check, of course. And if you're signing a contract or you're entering into an agreement with somebody, this is important. You want to make sure that you sign as the authorized person of your LLC and that you're not signing personally. So I'm going to sign as, Brian Pendergraft, authorized person of the Pendergraft firm LLC. That is how I make sure that I'm not signing as Brian Pendergraft. I'm signing against a Pendergraft firm. You want to do that for your contracts. Let's see. So Jasmine also asked. So Jasmine, she asked a lot of questions. Way to go, Jasmine. Thanks for your making this presentation great. All right. So she asked, you need to talk about lapsing. I lapsed and did not pay during one renewal year. And it costs more to reinstate my LLC than it did to file the damn thing in the first place. Learn it from me. So I have to use this to talk about the different statuses that a business can have. So I think she made a very good point, but I'm going to go a little even further than what she's talking about. So there's different statuses that your business can be in: good standing, not in good standing, forfeited, revived, or voluntary dissolved. Where you want to be is generally good standing. So good standing, that generally means that you pay your taxes and do your filings annually. You're good to go. You're good to operate your business. So they want you to be in good standing. That's where you want to be, in good standing. Business does not get good standing. So if your business is not in good standing, that means you typically maybe you didn't pay your taxes, or maybe you didn't do your annual filings that you're supposed to do. Maybe not correctly maintaining your LLC. So there's a defect that needs to be corrected. Now, if that defect goes on for long enough, which perhaps I think that was the situation that I guess Jasmine was in, is that if you're not in good standing for long enough, eventually your business will be forfeited. Forfeited. And what that means is it loses its right to operate in the state. And so now you lose your LLC protection. So make sure you maintain your LLCs. And then after being forfeited, it can be, in fact, I have a story about a business that I once filed a lawsuit for a landlord that I didn't know that their LLC wasn't maintained. And so basically the case ended up getting dismissed because the court threw the case out. They were like, well, you can't, a forfeited business cannot file a lawsuit. So the case had to be thrown out, and then we had to revive the business, and then I had to file again. And by then they did not pay a lot of money in rent. So you definitely want to keep up your business, or make sure your business doesn't lapse. So you could end up in a pretty bad situation. Let's see. Next status that I have here is your business is revived. That means it's been reinstated, and that is what happened to Jasmine here. She had to spend a lot of money to reinstate the business. So in order for her to be revived, once you're revived, you're kind of you're good to go at that point. And the last status is voluntarily dissolved. That is when you decide to end the business. All righty. Let's see. So Jasmine also asks, just moved from VA to DC. Do I need to change my LLC to a DC one? Just a general explanation. BW, DC, MD, and VA would be helpful. So does she have to, so you move from VA to DC. So does she have to change her LLC to a DC one? LLC to a DC one? So maybe there are a few options, actually. There's a few options. So she could dissolve the VA LLC and form a DC LLC, or she could maintain the the VA LLC, and then she could form file in DC. That's another option. Third option would be perhaps she can merge the business, where she can merge the old Virginia business into the new DC one, essentially, and then the DC one kind of takes on the liabilities and things of that nature of the old business. So there's a merger. That is the third option. So there's quite a few ways to, I guess, move an entity there. So maybe I'll talk to you about that, Jasmine, so we can figure out which one may work the best for you. So Latoya Cheeks asks, what information should you use when starting a nonprofit? Nonprofits are generally formed as corporations. Why? So for an LLC to be a nonprofit, all owners of the LLC must also be a nonprofit organization. So you'd have to form essentially you would have to form a corporation in order to be the owner of the nonprofit LLC. So rather than form a corporation just to be the owner of an LLC so that LLC can be a nonprofit, at that point it's as simple as to just form the nonprofit as a corporation. All right. Jalea Tillman asks, one more thing, can we address business credit? Or is it not looped to having an LLC? I need some clarity. Answer to that is I'm pretty bad at business credit. I'm not the person to ask. But that said, you know what I mean? You do still as I mentioned on the first slide, Jennifer's, when I answered Jennifer's question, LLCs are still good for business credit because you get your EIN number And at that point, you can borrow in your business name, not yours. So get that EIN. Alrighty, Jasmine, again, does LLC have to be in the state that I live in? This is super important because we're in the DMV and may do business in other areas. And I think I kind of answered that question already based on I feel like I answered that one, but let's see if I can give it a quick answer. I'm going to say no, but generally, I think that's a good answer. No, but generally, again, you know what I mean? I don't want to enter into the whole, foreign file discussion again. I think I explained foreign filing a lot. Alrighty. So Brian asked, hey, that's me. What are the downsides of forming an LLC? So they cost money to maintain. Not too much really, but it's something to keep in mind at least. LLCs have to be represented by an attorney in most court proceedings. And, in case you didn't know, attorneys cost money, especially me. I'm very expensive. And they are not foolproof again, but they are not necessarily foolproof either. You know what I mean? As far as they don't necessarily limit your liability 1,000% of the time. So that's why you want to make sure you operate your business the right way. So it does. So Brianna Bowden asks, can you have one LLC with multiple entities working under it? See, I told you guys I answered the parent-child LLC question later, and we are back on it. So let's see. So when it comes to a parent-child LLC, the owners of an LLC is called a member. And the member of an LLC, it actually can be owned by another LLC. And if a company has a controlling interest in another one, 51% or more, at that point they are called the parent company, and the company under it is called the subsidiary company or a parent-child LLC. So you can have an LLC with another LLC working under it. An example of a company with another company that owns another company, or at least I have here, is that I have Facebook subsidiary company is Instagram. So I'm not sure if you guys knew that, but Instagram is actually a subsidiary owned by Facebook, essentially. I think Facebook has most of the controlling shares of Instagram. Nevertheless, Instagram operates as a separate company. So Brent Hughes asks, what are the benefits of different entity types? I think I answered that, right? And just why do a lot of people incorporate in Delaware/Nevada? I at least already answered Delaware. Or was it Nevada that I answered? I think it was Delaware. And then Delaware. Delaware. Got it. Thank you. Then he also asked, what type of entity can be a parent or a child? Any of them, as long as they own 51%. So let's see. Nevada has no state corp. Oh, so Nevada's cool. So here's what I'm going to skip down to Nevada because I think I pretty much answered all those questions except Nevada. I haven't talked about Nevada yet. So Nevada has no state corporate income tax and imposes no fees on corporate shares. You see, there is neither personal income tax nor franchise tax for corporations or LLCs. And shareholders, directors, officers of corporations, or members of managers of an LLC don't need to be Nevada residents. So Nevada's pretty dope. Again, the problem is we run into that whole foreign filing issue, which makes us register here in Maryland anyway, or DC. So that's kind of the issue there. Let's see. Shakita Williams asks, how far along in starting a business should I become an LLC? And my answer to that is as soon as you can comfortably afford to pay for it. Again, I think a good idea is to, once you can pay for your LLC maintenance with your business activity, I think that's a good time to form a business. Now, again, you form a little too soon, you may never actually start doing the business. Let's see. Robert Monroe Jr. asks, how soon should I hire an attorney as part of my business strategy? Hire me as soon as possible. All right. So Deja Little asks, what is the importance of choosing a low risk industry for your LLC in order to obtain business credit? Answer to that is I have no idea. All right. It's Lenora. She has really more so points than anything, but she has some great points here. So first point is explain how an LLC is not a tax designation. Alrighty, so an LLC is not a tax designation. How having an LLC does not include licenses or inspections that are required for many entities. So having an LLC does not include licenses or inspections that are required for many entities. Let's see, next point. The importance of operating agreements, especially when there are multiple members. So there's a lot of questions that need to be considered when for entities with multiple members. So things you want to think about. So what happens if a member wants to sell their interest in the business? What happens if there is a dispute amongst the members? What happens if one of the partners decides to start a competing business, or can they start a competing business? Those are questions that need to be answered in an operating agreement. So that is why it's important to have an operating agreement, perhaps even drafted by an attorney, especially if there are multiple members, and they may even each want their own attorney representing their own interests when drafting this operating agreement. Because if 8 people were to hire me to draft an operating agreement, then I can't look out for everyone's best interest. It's kind of a conflict of interest. So, number 4, her 4th point she makes is the importance of having a business account and the golden bail, essentially. So, yes, you want to keep your business and your personal activity separate. So that's why you need a business account in order to do that. You need to keep it separate. Otherwise, your limited liability protection will fail when it is tested. Point number 5 she has, this is for my own personal gain. Keep all your paperwork and receipts and keep them organized. As an accountant and potential tax preparer, I charge more when I have to sort through mess because it takes more time. And again, this is exactly why I recommend outsourcing on that stuff. You know what I mean? I have my bookkeeper, company that I use. They're great. You know what I mean? So they just send me everything. Come tax time, I send it to my CPA. They get it done. I guess Lenora would be very happy with that. And different types of insurance and why you should have them. And again, I don't really know. At least I know what I need. I'm a lawyer, so I need legal malpractice insurance. That's what I have. So depending on your business, I guess you can tell me more about your business, and we can figure out what you need. Alrighty. Monique Toussaint asks, what are the benefits of doing a DBA if you already have an LLC? So in my case, it's because TPF Legal sounds cooler than the Pendergraft firm. Your DBA might sound cooler than your LLC name. So you can get a cool sounding DBA. Let's see. Oh man, we are about an hour. I'm going to try to push this through. Alrighty. So Jasmine also asked, do I need 2 LLCs? I already have one, but it's for a service-based business, and second business is product-based, different industry. Technically, no, you can do it all under one LLC, but it's best practice to put them under different LLCs. Alright, I'm going to speed run the list. EIN and TIN is the same thing, right? EIN equals employer identification number. TIN equals taxpayer identification number. Examples include an EIN or even an SSN. So EINs are required for LLCs to file taxes. And again, you can register an EIN with the IRS.gov essentially. So in short, all EINs or TINs, but not all TINs are EINs essentially. Alrighty, moving on. Tax stocks, more tax questions. I have no idea. Let's see. So Jennifer Ricardo, she asked, how can we form an LLC to charge and pay ourselves for significant home maintenance tasks that we, the homeowner, complete? So there may be a way to characterize the work that you do in your home as home office maintenance costs. So you need to speak to a CPA or tax attorney about that, see what repairs can be deducted as far as your office space goes. So Kimberly asks, what factors to consider when deciding if you should form a partnership or seek investors? A lot of them, but here are a few. So how will revenue profits or losses, how will they be shared? Who or whom is responsible for the day-to-day activities of the venture? What say do investors have, if any, or the silent partners maybe? What happens if you guys can't make a decision on a major issue? What happens? Or what happens if a partner wants out of the business? So again, those are some examples of questions that should be considered when when working with partners or investors, essentially. Kimberly also asks, what factors should you consider when creating a business succession plan? Do you need an attorney to help you with that? So a succession plan, best way to think of it is like an estate plan for your business. So what happens when you retire or die, or you can't afford to run your business anymore? You know what I mean? That's a good question to consider, right? Say me at the Pendergraft firm, who I just died today. I still got a bunch of cases this Friday. Like, well, what happens? You know what I mean? Like, I think I have maybe 4 cases this Friday. So if I were to die tomorrow, then that wouldn't be good. You know what I mean? Hopefully I have a succession plan, some attorneys that can take over and handle everything. But, again, that's what you have to consider when it comes to a succession plan. Like, who can take over your business? So for solopreneurs and small businesses, you consider you would have to train people to be able to fill in your shoes for if you're not able to do that. And then let's see. What other factors do you consider with a business succession plan? I don't know, what happens to your share of the business? Like, do they go to your family, or that's another thing to consider when it comes to a business succession plan. Again, it's like an estate plan for your business, actually. So who's going to step in? Who's going to run it? what happens after does the business get sold? There's lots of things you could I guess you could plan for essentially. And do you need an attorney to help you with that? Well, it's kind of, do you need an attorney to help you from the estate plan? No, but it's a really, really, really good idea. All right, so Monique Rich, she asks, is it possible to start an LLC but preserve the start date or history of a sole proprietor business? Had the business for many years, prefer not to have a new start date and not be eligible for possible PPP loans. So you can still list the official start date of the business in your articles or your operating agreement. So you can use that as the official start date. However, the registration date of your LLC is still going to